Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Leon Varenstein speaking from Los Angeles, California. We knew that Joe Biden didn't sign many of the executive orders, directives, and so-called pardons that he issued. We didn't know that the only pardon for release from any punishment that he personally signed was the pardon for his son. The rest were mechanical signatures. Why? We didn't know what. When he came to the White House, Joe was calling the security guards from the very beginning to get him out of the closet where he kept getting lost. I'm just repeating the words that were said under oath by one of Biden's security guards. And we didn't know that not only 4 staff members from the Oval Office were allowed to the teleprompter, but also a person with no titles or rights in the United States government, namely Joe's wife, Jill Biden. And now we know that she often entered the office, which, as you understand, was locked and carefully guarded, brought in papers, signed something, and took them away without showing anyone anything. The president's wife, the First Lady of America, was personally bringing something to the office, not handing it over to assistants, and was taking it somewhere herself. But what was it, and why was she doing it herself? Why were there decrees and orders concerning the army? Maybe those were dispatches from the ambassador, maybe just messages from foreign leaders, signed by the President of the United States. They were sent without the knowledge of the deranged president or his wife, who had no official authority. How much harm did she do to America, and how many years in prison does she deserve for that? But more on that later. For now, let's return to the Middle East, which seems to concern everyone. Iran, after warning the United States, launched 9 or 10 missiles. There is still debate about how many actually hit the 2 American military bases. They said 14, but there really weren't 14. 9 were shot down, and it seems like 10 went somewhere else, and not at all where they were intended to go. There's debate about that. In fact, there are still questions about the missiles aimed at the 2 American military bases. They said 14, but there really weren't 14. 9 were shot down, and it seems like 10 went somewhere else, not at all where they were intended to go. Then they announced that they wouldn't fire anymore. In fact, they said they wouldn't do it again at all. By the way, former Russian President Medvedev announced that Russia and North Korea would supply nuclear warheads to Iran so they could bomb, as he said, Iran and America. But more on that later. I'll just say that Medvedev is being used, just like Zhirinovsky was in his time, to test the reaction to half-crazy statements, and then they say it's just the personal opinion of the person who said it. So,
Iran? Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful planet. Welcome to Tusi Television, your global news channel. We have breaking news from the Middle East. The Israel Defense Forces have successfully destroyed and demolished the gates of Iran's main political prison.
The Iranian opposition asked Israel to blow up the gates of Iran's main political prison. It's called Evin. What wouldn't you do for good friends and neighbors, right? Hundreds of relatives and friends of the prisoners were waiting for a signal, and after the Israeli bombers' raid, they rushed through the blown-up gates into the prison, and Vartan escaped. Some of the guards went with him, while others stayed in the buildings with their weapons and barricaded themselves. Negotiations are underway with them. And at the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, at their headquarters, that is, at their command center, it's theirs.
Besides, there is complete chaos there. We are receiving information about this. Oh, almost 1,000 members of the IRGC and militants have been eliminated in the last few hours.
More than 1,000 members of the Islamist militia have been eliminated in the last 2 hours during this very raid. At the same time, Crown Prince Pahlavi announced that a transitional government has been formed and is negotiating with the army through officers who have already sided with the legitimate Iranian authority that existed in Iran before the arrival of the Ayatollahs.
The entire city was captured, and meanwhile, the Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, announced that a provisional government would soon be formed. He and his team are in contact with defectors from the armed forces who are joining the revolution, and events are unfolding.
And here is a video filmed by relatives of political prisoners showing the entrance gates to the prison. In Iran, people are already saying, "This is our Berlin Wall." Millions of Iranians have been waiting for this day, waiting for liberation.
As I already mentioned, in the past few hours, Israeli fighter jets and the Israel Defense Forces as a whole have eliminated nearly 1,000 IRGC members and militants, including Basij. Of course, this is the paramilitary wing of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. These are the people who basically go around and beat up protesters. And most of them are young people too. They've been brainwashed. The headquarters were destroyed. We're talking about her. First, let's talk about the main IRGC headquarters in Karaj, which is obviously outside Tehran, to the west of it. It was completely destroyed by the Israelis in a sudden attack that they absolutely did not expect at that moment. Look.
Yes.
Now we have confirmation that the main headquarters of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps no longer exists. Look.
The Israelis are methodically destroying the Iranian KGB, all its departments and divisions, and they are not touching the army at all after eliminating the leadership, which was appointed by Ptolemy. They are not touching the army, nor the people. Israel is helping them get rid of tyranny. They had a chance to stop bombing Israel, to stop developing nuclear weapons, to stop sponsoring terrorism, and to stop shouting "Death to America." They didn't stop, and now they are starting to reap the fruits of their deeds and actions. Here is the one who is already being called the new Shah.
It's time to put an end to the suffering. That's why today I have a direct message for Ali Khamenei. Step down. And if you do that, you will receive a fair trial and due process, which is far more than you have ever given any Iranian. To K, other high-ranking officials of the regime, those of you whose hands are stained with the blood of the Iranian people, you will also have to face
justice.
But we will not repeat the mistakes of other failed transitional periods. Those of you who are loyal to the Iranian nation, not the Islamic Republic, have a place in the future democratic Iran if you join the people now.
This is the condition. Decide now. Then you are with us. If you don't decide, you are against us.
Iran has threatened to attack Iran. Iran has threatened to attack Saudi Arabia, the United States of America, to block the Hormuz Strait and drive up oil prices, as well as to attack military bases around the world. But it looks like they're starting with Qatar. Literally within the last hour, the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar was attacked. It seems that the base was hit by a missile.
Attack. Allow me
to show you this.
Now we
are being told that 10 Iranian missiles have been intercepted. No, sorry, 9 out of 10 were intercepted. The attack was carried out on an American airbase.
The Al Udeid Air Base.
The Ministry of Defense of Qatar has confirmed the attack, and they are now preparing for defense and possibly a counterstrike.
To all those who shouted that you can't negotiate with Qatar because they finance the Palestinians and universities, it seems that all the unrest in the United States is also their doing. Not listening to the idiots, Trump suggested that Qatar shouldn't waste their money on terror, but invest in artificial intelligence instead. And they gave us almost $1 trillion, a trial on. And right away, they stopped seeing eye to eye with Iran because the money was invested in America. The United States is more interesting and much more profitable. So they told Iran, you fired at an uninhabited area. Okay, well, we understand what you were doing. They answered, yes, and kind of at the Americans, we understand that too. But if another missile enters our airspace, then we'll join the Jews and start hitting you. And with us are Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, and all the rest, 1 or 2 billion Sunnis. The Iranians managed to shell Syria. Obviously, the Israeli air defense batteries, which the Syrians, also siding with the United States and Israel, decided to place on their territory.
I want to switch to another major story that is breaking. I want to move on to another one,
Major news story
which is just now.
that just came out.
This is a message from Takeru Carlson
It looks like
that this is breaking news. A huge scandal is erupting in Washington. The lawyer for pardons at the Justice Department, Ed
Martin, the very same.
the man who was sabotaged by the Democrats, is now occupying
a tough stance.
He discovered sensational legal information. Ron Klein, Anita Dunn, Steve Ricciardi, Bob Bauer, and even Jill Biden are mentioned by name. The informant, who claims that within 5 days after Joe Biden became the 46th president of the United States, people
Started to use
an auto-signing device
for
signing decrees and forging pardons. This is a scandal,
connected with
an abuse of power about which we should get much more information very soon. But this is also another major sensational piece of news.
Now, for those who are not aware, President Donald Trump instructed
The Department of Justice to investigate the autographs of former President Joe Biden, in particular,
on the documents
about pardons and commutations. Now, this is causing serious concerns. In just the first 30 days, it became clear that Biden had cognitive impairments. From the very beginning of his presidency,
that is, from the very beginning, even before taking the oath, Biden was already like a vegetable. He was unable to understand who he was, where he was, or who was around him.
Pardon Attorney Ed Martin is leading the investigation, which is focused
On
whether
Biden is mentally,
capable of authorizing these.
pardon, also,
The investigation is directly examining whether staff and individuals in the White House acted illegally while serving as the President of the United States.
the law says that no one has the right to take on the role of an official, from a police officer to the president. Do you think the people will like it before the next election? Whoever wanted to issued presidential decrees, which are almost like laws here, ladies and gentlemen, until the next president, the Supreme Court, or Congress, for example, cancels them.
According to cable news network, according to the data, the administration,
Trump's administration informed.
the leading Republicans in Congress before the start of the coordinated United States Israeli airstrike on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities
Vaforda Natanz.
and Isfahan.
However, Chuck Schumer and others
Claimed that they were never informed and now they want to impeach President Trump.
Nevertheless, the White House press secretary and the president himself
Trump provided phone records proving that all the top leadership of the Democratic Party, including Chuck Schumer, was directly informed about the strikes.
on Iran.
The only one who was not informed was the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
Honestly, I'm amazed by the Democrats. The main Democrat in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, well, almost the main one in the country, says, "No one told me anything about bombing Iran." This is a violation of protocol. It's a violation of all the rules we have. Trump needs to be impeached, and Trump says tomorrow. He shows journalists and the camera a printout of a phone conversation with Chuck Schumer where he was warned. Maybe he was drunk or high, or maybe he's senile. Well, he caught it, talked to Biden and caught it. Maybe he's just a complete fool. You have to be, to today, knowing how modern phone technology works, say, "I never talked," when it's so easy 200 years ago. I never talked to him on the phone. And even then it could be found out, but now there's also a transcript of the conversation. All right, maybe he was drunk, maybe he's senile, maybe he's just a fool. Easily, that's completely possible. So, about the one person you didn't talk to, you mean Hakeem Jeffrey? He's a representative in Congress from New York, and he was elected by New Yorkers as their leader. Well, not by New Yorkers, but by the Democrats in Congress, since they're the minority, and he was elected as the minority leader. So he was kind of informed that they were theoretically planning to fly, but they didn't tell him the date or anything like that, because they were afraid that if they told him, Iran would know everything and would be waiting. American planes and shoot at them, possibly killing our pilots. The Democrats, well, not all of them, of course, are generally on the side of Islam and not on the side of what we call the free market, freedom of capitalism and market relations. They like Islam more. Maybe it fits better with their, "Oh, we're not religious, we don't believe in anything," the kind of non-religion they follow.
Remember, in the last 2 days, we've learned from Israeli sources that before the American strikes, which partially destroyed nuclear facilities in Iran, the Israelis tried to disable the air defense systems of the Iranian regime. This was done not only to clear the way for American bombers, but also to increase pressure on the regime, on the remaining political leadership in Tehran. Understanding that after most of their nuclear program is destroyed and their ballistic missile program is crushed, they will only have the option to turn to their proxies in the region. And over the past year and a half, against the backdrop of the Israeli campaign against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, the United States-Israeli campaign against the Houthis in Yemen, Israeli strikes on Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza, as well as ongoing limited attacks on Iranian proxies, Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria, their proxy capabilities have also been virtually destroyed. So Iran, they're running out of leverage. They can still launch retaliatory attacks like today, but they don't have an unlimited supply of missiles. And both the Israelis and the Americans understand this very well.
Remember, we talked just 2, maybe 3 days after the horrors of October 7th, 1923, that an opportunity opened up for Israel. Sometimes terrible events open up certain opportunities. Yes, so an opportunity opened up to destroy Hamas, then Hezbollah, then neutralize the Houthis and militias inside Syria, and after that, without fearing a knife in the back, to attack Iran. Now we are seeing the completion of an operation that began in 2023, right after the killing of 1,000 Israelis and the capture and murder of hundreds of others.
We confirmed that the IRGC notified Qatar in advance about the upcoming strikes so that the Americans could prepare and evacuate all civilians from the impact zone. This shows that it was a face-saving operation intended solely for the domestic Iranian audience to create the impression that they were taking some action. Iranian state television says, "We have just dealt a crushing blow to the United States." A statement from Iran's Supreme National Security Council says that the IRGC and the army have destroyed the United States Al-Udeid airbase in Qatar in response to the strikes on their nuclear facilities carried out last weekend. Yeah, I don't think so. What we did to your nuclear infrastructure, now that was truly devastating. You can't trust anything published by the Iranian government. All their statements are wild, exaggerated claims. However, the wording suggests that this will be the only military action Iran takes against the United States.
Arjay believes that this will be the only response from Iran directed at the United States. He said this even before Iran, so to speak, raised its hands. So well done, Arjay sensed it well. Once after Soleimani was killed on Trump's orders, Iran also attacked an American base in Syria, and the point was that it was empty, meaning unused. Iran later reported that after their strike, the base ceased to exist, completely forgetting to mention that it had ceased to exist before the strike.
And why is there such a staggering drop now, already below $69 per barrel?
This is truly unbelievable. If you need a single number that would explain everything that Jennifer Griffin, Trey Youngston, Jillian just talked about, that's the current price of oil. Right now, we're in the 60s range, okay? Right now, the price of oil is lower than it was when President Trump took office. And in the context of the last 48 hours, in the context of the last week and a half, it's just mind-blowing that the price of oil starts with a 6. Meanwhile, the index at some point today went up by 200 to 300 points. This indicates that the risk premium on oil, the risk premium that traders factor in because of events and conflicts in the Middle East, is essentially disappearing before our eyes right now. Remember, we discussed the threat that Iran might try to block the Hormuz Strait as oil prices are falling. This suggests that those with the greatest financial interests in the oil industry believe so. We don't think that Iran will actually take any serious action in this direction.
Oil prices naturally went up at first. It was about 70 per barrel. Brent went up to 79. I'm not counting the small change. Then they dropped by 71%, and now they've dropped again to 68%. Of course, if Iran started attacking the oil fields there, Saudi would close the Hormuz Strait, and oil would jump to 100 or 120 per barrel. But the market decided that Iran isn't that crazy after all, and you see, it turned out to be right. Americans don't want to decide for other countries what kind of system they will have, who will be in charge, or what laws the country will live by. That's why Iranian affairs should be decided by Iranians, not by an external force. And now, as has become our tradition, there's a little cherry on top of the big cake.
In other news, former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev attracted attention yesterday by posting on the Satam that Russia is ready to directly supply Iran with its own nuclear
warheads.
In this post, he also admitted that the long-term goal of Iran's nuclear program was to develop nuclear weapons. Yes, he says the following. Dmitry Medvedev, the Americans with their nighttime strikes on 3 nuclear facilities in Iran are enriching nuclear material. And now we can say this openly, we can say this directly. The future production of nuclear weapons will continue. And third, a number of countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their own nuclear warheads. So obviously that's how Russia really feels about this issue. Dmitry Medvedev is clearly an unpredictable person. President Trump sees this and acts in an alpha male way toward Medvedev, basically saying, sit down and be quiet, leave this to the adults. There's a reason why Putin is the main one there, and you were just a nominal figure. Trump posted the following this morning. Did I hear correctly that former President Medvedev from Russia is so casually throwing around the N-word nuclear and saying that he and other countries will supply nuclear warheads to Iran? Did he really say that, or did I just imagine it? If he really said that and it gets confirmed, please let me know immediately. By the way, you can't treat N lightly. I guess that's exactly why Putin is in charge there. The fact that Dmitry Medvedev says such things, in my opinion, only highlights how high the stakes are here. The security sphere in the Middle East includes such Gulf states as Oman, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and so on, as well as Israel. Russia and China hope to challenge this together with Iran. Now those plans have collapsed. Putin always has a great poker face. Clearly, Dmitry Medvedev does not. He gives away Russia's intentions. President Trump has also just posted a message to once again emphasize that Iran's nuclear program was completely destroyed. And he criticized the corporate media for downplaying the success of these strikes, stating that the targets we struck in Iran were completely destroyed. And everyone knows that. Only fake news can claim otherwise, trying to downplay it as much as possible. And even they say they were pretty well destroyed. Especially persistent in spreading this lie is Ellison Cooper from Fake News. I would say that if President Trump really uses this as an opportunity to get out of the situation and doesn't respond to Iran, then in my opinion, this could become the biggest foreign policy achievement of any American president in recent decades.
By the way, where is Ayatollah? Maybe he already put on a dress, powdered his nose, and ran away. By the way, where to? To Medvedev?
One more question that we don't have an answer to yet. Where is the Iranian Ayatollah right now? Just a few days ago, we were receiving reports that we didn't talk about publicly because they weren't confirmed. But there were rumors that Israel struck his bunker. These reports still don't seem to be confirmed. At the moment, no one knows anything. No one has heard anything about Ayatollah. Iranian officials say he went underground, afraid that the Americans and Israelis will kill him. But I don't know if it's true, if he's really hiding, or if he was actually killed. We don't know. But it makes you think. Who is making decisions in Iran right now? It's the IRGC. Do they receive any instructions from their supreme leader? Trump caused a storm on social media last night by posting this. It's not common to say regime change these days. But if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why shouldn't there be a regime change there? Make Iran great again, make Iran great again. He's clearly trying to troll the progressive right. Trump is the main troll. Friends, let me know what you think. If the Iranian Ayatollah is really still alive and in hiding, how much time do you think he has left?
None of us are oracles. No one can say what will happen or what the future holds. But there is now a chance that Iran will rise up, the army will take control, Shah Pahlavi will return, form a temporary government, and prepare the country for a transition, probably to a constitutional monarchy, something like the British one. That's all for today, ladies and gentlemen. The only thing is, I want to show you once again the announcement about our wonderful branded merchandise. Friends and like-minded people, we have decided to spread our views in another way. The first is, of course, the Leon Veinstein United States channel, a channel about political events. The second is also a channel, Roadmap to Freedom, and all of this is copied to Camerton Global, to the website, and on the Roadmap channel. We talk about a new science in which, just like in geometry, it has been proven that collectivism always leads to the loss of freedom and to poverty. The third is Camerton Global itself, where you can either access or purchase various books and lectures for free, where you can learn how to raise children. And now our slogans are on caps, mugs, t-shirts, jackets, and bags. For example, you put on a t-shirt or took a bag with the word liberal on it. So you're a liberal? Well, then pay your taxes. Or a mug that says freedom of my speech, or a bag. Allow liberals to have abortions. Make who love Texas. That is, Marx loved taxes, but by the way, he didn't pay them. But I don't like them. There's also a hooded jacket with the inscription liberal or smart. So basically, you're either smart or you're a liberal. Your friends will definitely enjoy a bag with the inscription way more equal than you. I'm way more equal than you, or, than everyone else. And your children, liberals, might be happy with a gift that says tolerance is overrated. The importance of tolerance is greatly exaggerated. Every time you watch a video on this channel, there's a shop below the description with these and other funny items, and the selection will keep growing. By the way, if you have ideas for interesting slogans, write them in the comments. If we accept any of your suggestions, you'll get a bag and a toy with the slogan you suggested as a gift from us. Check it out right now. When you finish watching this video, take a look at the Elector eShop, as it's called. Yeah, well, I hope you'll like what they have there. Ladies and gentlemen, all the income we earn there goes to support the needs of the channel